but absolutely savage move by Sam. Welcome to The Weekender. Zac Prince, founder and former CEO of BlockFi, testified against Sam Bankman-Fried. The guy was just there for half the day, and honestly, I thought he was kind of weak. Kind of whined and complained that if it wasn't for Scam Sam, that basically BlockFi would still exist. And I highly doubt that. A buddy of mine had thousands of dollars in BlockFi literally just days before they filed for bankruptcy. My buddy took that money out. Lucky for him, because so many people were also locked out of their funds with BlockFi. So in some ways, they did the same thing that FTX did. They were over-leveraged, they were over-collateralized, and it ended up biting them in the butt. They were trusting other crypto exchanges and their balance sheets, like FTX, which of course were all cooked, held on to millions of dollars in customer funds. Pretty safe to assume that the guy is still super rich, despite the BlockFi customers losing their money. So he certainly has every right not only to testify against Sam, but also every right to complain that if it wasn't for FTX and Scam Sam and Alameda, of course, that potentially BlockFi could still be functioning today. He has every right to feel that way. But the last couple of years, when so many everyday folks have been essentially royally with, of course, global economy suffering, post C-19 and all that jazz. But you couple that together with Ukraine-Russia problems, China supply chain issue, everyday folks were royally screwed. Many people struggling. Inflation has battered everyone. On top of that, the energy cost worldwide has gone up, and stuff is 2x, 3x more expensive than it used to be. So for him to sit there and complain that FTX brought him down, brought BlockFi down, when he himself took the money from everyday folks, I don't exactly feel bad for this guy whatsoever at all. And I'm sure positive he himself walked away with millions and millions of dollars. But in light of that, his testimony does kind of clarify some key points when it comes to FTX, crypto world in general, and of course Alameda research. And it sheds a lot of light as to why Sam, during Caroline Ellison's testimony, she said that Sam didn't want her to quit. On top of that, they all said, Gary Wang, SBF, Nishad, and Caroline, of course, they all said that they thought and considered closing down, shutting down Alameda, but they didn't, and they couldn't shut it down. Because when you put all the cards together, you realize that all the loans, especially with Caroline's testimony, that there were upwards of $5 billion loaned to FTX executives, especially, of course, Sam, Gary Wang, and Nishad. So when you realize this, they couldn't shut Alameda down. Because essentially, if Alameda were to be shut down, all these so-called loans would become essentially callable, would become known. The jig would be up. And of course, that would be a giant PR disaster for FTX in general. And with these cooked balance sheets that were shown, used to acquire more loans by Alameda, if Alameda were to have shut down, it would have been a cascading, triggering effect. All of the crypto lenders they've ever dealt with would have called in their loans as well. So they couldn't shut Alameda down, and that has become absolutely clear. Anyway, so I'm just going to talk about a few highlights from Zac Prince's testimony, which I would say are the most notable. Remember, he's a witness for the prosecution as a crypto lender, offering loans to Alameda, where the prosecution basically highlighted that BlockFi's process for making crypto loans was thorough and in accordance with established methods for institutional buyers using KYC, with Prince saying that most of BlockFi's loans were callable, meaning they could call them at any time, call them back, they would have to be repaid. Their loan documents were 30 to 40 pages long. They had counsel, meaning that the lawyers essentially wrote all this stuff up, and they themselves, BlockFi, did their due diligence. So much so that when they were rolling in the dough, BlockFi was lending out $5 to $10 billion. It's a lot of money to loan out. One thing to note was that back in 2021, BlockFi had only been lending out $10 million to Alameda. So they had a conservative approach in dealing with Sam. But nonetheless, he claims that CEO to CEO talks were suggested and he followed through, and somehow he felt FTX was absolutely reputable, especially after seeing those faux balance sheets, so much so that he increased the loans in 1 year period from May 2021 to May 2022, increased from about 50 mil all the way $1.1 billion. That's a lot of trust. So that's very interesting how much higher they started loaning out money to Alameda. Another interesting part is Terra Luna, when they blew up, he talked about how that affected BlockFi, and essentially causing another cascade where other companies that they had lent money to, for example, Three Arrows Capital, they defaulted, causing BlockFi to sit on a lot of losses, according to Zac Prince. And around that time, Voyager Exchange also collapsed, Celsius Exchange, all these guys filed for bankruptcy, leaving BlockFi in a world of hurt because people defaulted on their loan. Anyways, this is the third highlight that I found super interesting, where I think Zac Prince, BlockFi CEO, was absolutely played by Sam Bankman-Fried. I think totally played him big time. So I have this theory because the prosecution was basically asking about FTX buying out BlockFi, which at the time in the crypto world, many people saw Sam as the sort of crypto hero, but he was actually a crypto creepo. Effective altruism. Always with the altruism. Sam was being framed essentially, especially in the media, as a crypto savior, the crypto Jesus for everyone, for all the companies that were essentially collapsing just prior to FTX collapsing. So the prosecutor essentially asking, was there a time when BlockFi was going to sell itself to FTX? With Zac Prince saying, yes, we decided we could bring in additional capital to help with consumer confidence, that it would be good, of course, for them, their image, that Sam, FTX proposed a deal, a two-part deal to complete a sale. Zac Prince saying initially a $400 million credit facility to BlockFi from FTX. On top of that, FTX being able to acquire BlockFi in full in July 2023, with Zac Prince saying that he thought all of this would happen. And this is when Sam pulls a fast one on BlockFi. At least that's implied in the whole testimony. So the prosecutor asked, did this happen? The sale. Zac Prince saying no. But then the prosecutor asked again, did this arrangement, the potential sale, did this arrangement influence loan given to Alameda Research? And that is the cherry on the cake. That is a good move. You gotta admit. Good move. Because BlockFi is having all this financial trouble. Sam comes in saying, I will rescue you guys. I will help you. And uses that altruistic image to essentially squeeze BlockFi out of more loans. So, say what you will about Scam Sam, but you gotta admit, absolutely savage move by Sam. The prosecutor asking, were you extending loans to Alameda because of your potential deal with FTX? Of course, yes. So much so that just in 2022, from July to early November, just before FTX collapsed, $850 million just in that period. From BlockFi to Alameda. Massive move. Ballsy move. Upon the prosecutors showing balance sheets, how they were cooked, BlockFi's Prince basically says that if it wasn't cooked, they would be able to tell that FTX and Alameda were absolutely insolvent, and they would never have given the loans. And of course, BlockFi had absolutely no clue that any of the FTX executives, founders like Sam, Gary Wang, were taking out massive loans, billions of dollars taken out from Alameda. And another interesting part, according to Prince, is that Alameda offered FTT as collateral, along with Solana, both of which, of course, were essentially controlled by FTX, with FTT being valuable despite FTX itself printing it, of course, out of thin air. So Sam and Alameda were able to use this printed out of thin air funny money, FTT, and then go out and find real lenders to give them billions of dollars for this monopoly Ponzi scheme money. And make matters worse for Zac Prince and BlockFi in general, collateral held by BlockFi for the loans was actually held by BlockFi on the FTX exchange, which apparently BlockFi used as a trading platform for some of their clients, their institutional clients, hence royally screwed. Ouch. And I'm sure all of the scammery and cooked books happens all the time in finance, which of course is why auditing and some regulations are extremely important. Honestly, I don't think BlockFi's lawyers did the due diligence he claims they did. Any experienced person probably would have checked, double-checked, triple-checked, quadruple check. These are billions and billions of dollars that they were dealing with. So something's not adding up there. So there has to be some kind of theatrics happening behind the scenes that likely isn't being shared by either BlockFi or Sam or Caroline. And remember that during Caroline's testimony, they talked a lot about her plea deal, which I went around, dug up, found it on Google, of course, as you can see here, state that she pleaded guilty to 7 counts and that these 7 counts, the total max sentence of incarceration on counts 1 through 7 is 110 years imprisonment. It does say that the defendant here, which is Caroline, shall make restitution in an amount to be specified by the court in accordance with, and this amount shall be paid according to a plan established by the court. Also says she agrees to forfeit to the United States any and all property, real or personal, involved in said offenses or any property traceable to such property, including but not limited to a sum of money in the US currency representing the amount of property involved in all said offenses. Essentially, that whatever money they can tie to her from Alameda, she needs to return. Also noted is that any amount, any forfeiture of assets shall not be treated as satisfaction of any fine, restitution, or cost of imprisonment, or any other penalty the court may impose upon her addition to forfeiture, meaning they could still fine her. And this in no way, shape, or form means that she avoids jail if she returns all the money. And this is in the plea agreement, so interesting there. So it's important to note that there's been no reports of her essentially returning any money of any sort. And another revelation from all of this is that basically the last couple of years, the crypto industry, a lot of it has shown itself to be a house of cards. And this kind of needed to happen. So I'm excited for what is coming next week. More exciting witnesses, especially Nishat Singh. That's going to be a good one. So with that, guys, I hope you've had a great weekend. Thanks for watching. Smash that like if you haven't. Please do subscribe if you haven't. And I will see you in the next one.